Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. It's great to see you in our new series of webinar called Attention Matters. And we're here today joined by Joanna Paolinelli. Hello, Joanna. Welcome.
Hello, it's lovely to be here. Really is nice to be here today.
It is nice to see you again in our webinar series. Where are you joining us from, Joanna, today?
From Pisa, from
Pisa.
Tuscany,
Okay.
yes.
Welcome to all our participants, and we're delighted that you can join us.
It's a beautiful day here.
It is a beautiful day. It's a
Yes,
beautiful
sun
day
is
here as
shining.
well.
Sun is
Please,
shining. We've got Moldova. Hello.
yeah, please write to us on the chat with a hello and where you're joining from. And it's great to see so many of you from all over the world,
Oh,
as usual.
Azerbaijan. Yes, it is great. Oh,
So
Laura,
we're
yeah.
here with Joanna with a new edition
Oh,
of our Attention Matters series that started last month, Joanna. And we started this series in February. We had a hands-on session on enhancing memory during exam prep time with Georgia Papamichailidou. And this edition is available on our Language Heard YouTube channel. So if you haven't had a chance to go and look at it, we encourage you to go after you hear Joanna's talk to go and visit the previous session as well. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the topic before we give the floor to our speaker today. Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining. So we, within our webinar series, Attention Matters, we wanted to reflect on this, what we call a new attention reality. And we wanted to explore how learners can balance fragmented attention and focused attention. These two moments that they need to be balanced in what we inevitably are experiencing in this tech-rich environment. And so with this in mind, with this idea in mind, we have invited speakers to think about attentional mechanisms and memory during exam prep, like we did in our last webinar. We've also, Joanna today is going to talk to us about attention and retention, the attentional demands on learners in digital environments, and she has incredible things to share with us. And in our next webinar coming up in April, we're going to think about visual strategies to hone attention. So in general, we were inviting our speakers and generally our audience together to rethink about, to think about this notion and also rethink about assessment and assessment environments as attention-intensive spaces. So we feel that this is an important topic and we're listening closely to what educators are witnessing in their day-to-day practice. And we want our speakers to be bringing in new insights to that. So with this in mind, we've invited our beloved Joanna. She's been part of our Energize series for a number of years, and she's very well known with our trainers in Italy and our teachers. And she's the managing director of the British School of Pisa. And she's also somebody that very enthusiastically talks about about technology. And she's also she has fresh ideas about integrating technology into learning. But also in the past, we've done a number of very important and interesting webinars on innovative approaches to fostering an inclusive environment. So I think, Joanna, these are your two main training pillars.
Dyslexia, motivation. But today is a new topic, eh?
Exactly.
But it's a very important topic.
Welcome, Joanna. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here again. And today, yes, I am talking about attention, and preparing for this webinar has really made it, has been very important for me because I have changed a lot of my habits just by preparing for this webinar. And maybe you might change some of your habits afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to start with a question for you, because I do like to ask questions, use the chat box, because at the end of the day, I do have to keep your attention for an hour. All right, so the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Okay, so just write down, you can, just tell me, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? The very first thing that you do. So, okay, have breakfast, Piera. Yes, that's one thing. Oh, you snooze. Hit snooze. Open the windows, stretch, hug our dogs. So that's a nice one, Franz. Yes, I do hug my dogs. Okay, someone said check the phone, Anita. Okay, pray to God. Yes, I've been like that this year. Super, super. I get, okay. So we have got, okay. So no, so this is good, okay? Because the first thing that I used to do before when I woke up was check my phone, okay? I used to check my phone, and this is one habit that I've actually changed, okay? All right, so I wanted just to share this little picture with you because this was my habit before, okay? I used to check my phone, and then I used to have breakfast, and then I used to maybe have a little look on my computer and check some emails. Then I would take my dogs for a walk, because yes, I have dogs, but I have my Apple Watch. So while I was taking the dogs for a walk, I would be checking my Apple Watch, and then off I go to work, where I would sometimes also take my tablet with me. So in one day, I've used already 4 different types of screens. And then when I get home, of course, we've also got Netflix before I go to bed, okay? So in one day, I mean, I don't know if that's the case for a lot of you, but I definitely use a lot of different devices, okay? Niga, I'll you too. But also, it's not just the fact that I use devices. On one device, I would do so many things as well. So when I checked my phone in the morning, I would look at WhatsApp, and then I would look at Instagram, and then I would have a little look at TikTok. And so I was actually shifting my attention even on the one device, okay? So, and this is me, and I'm 50, okay? 50 last week, actually. Just think of the younger generation, okay? The younger generation are actually, I think, that's what they've been born into. This is something that I've only been doing maybe in the last 10 years, but they have born this way, absolutely. So today I am going to talk about how this has become a bit of a dopamine addiction, all this constant digital stimulation, and which has started to fragment our attention, okay? And as something I wanted to say, usually anyone who's been to my webinars, I love to use videos and music and all these things to keep your attention. But today, I am not using any videos, any audios, because I'm going to try to keep your attention. I'm going to try to get you to really try and be attentive without all these stimulants, okay? So off we go. Let's see if I manage. By the way, you will hear from my accent that I have got. Thank you for happy birthday. I am from Scotland, if anyone's wondering about my accent, okay? But I will try and speak slowly, because I do, sometimes when I get very passionate, I do speak quickly, okay? Thank you, Pauline. Thank you. So today, I'm going to be talking about the impact of technology on attention. I'm going to explore some of the effects of this fragmented attention on learning. I'm going to show you ways of balancing with the use of digital tools, okay? Which you might think, okay, yes, because obviously digital tools do exist. Our students love digital tools, but I'm going to show you ways which we can actually use them to help us to balance attention. And also, I'm going to show you some learning strategies that can navigate this digital divide, all right? Thank you, everyone, for this happy birthday. Okay, so let's look at the 2 types of attention, fragmented and focused attention to start with, right? So fragmented attention is what I was talking about, these short bursts of exposure to language context, like scrolling through social media, watching all these YouTube short videos. And they can be helpful to help us build vocabulary or familiarity with English. But we need to have some strategies that can actually help us to go for more deeper learning. And this, obviously, when we focus our attention, there we have that deeper, sustained ability to learn, okay? When we're reading, when we're writing, when we're listening, when we're speaking. And it requires effort and extended periods of concentration. Now, I'm going to ask you another question, okay? Most of you are teachers, is that correct? Are you teachers? I'm going to ask you, in your classrooms, are your students allowed to have phones? That is my question, because I'm from Italy. I live in Italy. And the phones have completely been removed only in upper secondary school can they use their phones, but up until then they cannot use their phones. Okay, no, they aren't. Okay, no, they are. Yes, sometimes. It depends on the class. Okay, excellent. All right. And now, obviously, you know, they've actually stopped a lot of students using their phones just to avoid this whole fragmented attention. Okay, so yes, okay, very good. I just wanted to ask you that. All right, so I'm going to ask you another question now. We're going to do a poll, right? A bit of technology. So let's just think about your habits. Think about who you are and how you use technology. So from on a scale from 1 to 10, how often do you multitask when you are working, okay, or studying? Okay, so multitask is when you're maybe answering an email and then you look at WhatsApp, or okay, so all right, okay, so you've already started to answer me there. Okay, 8, okay. Oh, we've got quite a variation. Too often, okay, too often, Elaine. Yes. I 5, okay, that's quite balanced. Okay, okay, but most of you are on the top end, towards the more the middle or the top end. Very few 2s, 3s. Okay, we've got a 0, Rob. That's wonderful. Well done, Rob. You can do the webinar the next time. Okay. Always my kids interrupt me. Yes, well, my kids are older now, so I don't have that problem. All right. Yes, Robbie said, okay. All right. Before I started to really look at attention, I must say that I was well up towards 10. Okay. So this has been quite an impact for me learning about attention. It has changed, as I say, a lot of my practices. All right, then. So I asked, I was speaking to my daughters the other day. And I said to them, and I started to see how this, how they shouldn't use their phones. And I said to my daughter, does your teacher tell you about like not to use your phone? Do you listen to your teacher? Do you listen? And she says, no, I don't really listen to my teacher in that sense. She said, I don't. So she always uses her phone when she studies. And I said, well, what about if, you actually tried did some experiments. I said to my daughter, I said, what if you tried it, doing different experiments, and you actually saw that by changing your habits, you could actually concentrate better? Would that make you think? And she said, well, yes, that would make me think. Okay, so this is a little bit experiment, right? Now, you should try this with your students, because I did try it with mine, all right? So what you do is you give them a focused listening exercise, all right? And they can listen up to a minute or two, you decide, okay? And the first time they have to listen and they have to take some notes, okay? And then they have to write 3 points that they remember, key points. Then you do a distracted listening exercise where while they're listening, they have to do a simple maths problem, okay? And then you can ask them, what changed, okay? What changed for them? Or you could also take one group and actually half of the class take notes and half of the class do the math problem. Then you can discuss this. And this is a good way for them to understand how being distracted has actually affected their comprehension, okay? And ask them, what method helped you more? The focused listening, the multitasking, okay? So this whole idea of making your students reflect on digital distractions could actually help them to understand and maybe change their habits. But start off, first of all, with you, okay? We've got to start off experimenting on ourselves, which is what I have been doing for the past few months. Now, I started to do all these changes after reading the research, okay? Because until people see these things to you, you're saying, yes, okay, but once you start to really read some of the research, it did make an impact on my habits, okay? So I read this article done in 2009, and what they did a series of experiments on people who either were heavy or light media multitaskers, and they actually made a grid to decide who was heavy and who was light multitaskers. And what they found is that people who were heavy multitaskers were much more susceptible to interference from irrelevant stimuli, and this reduced their ability to filter out distractors, so they were easily distracted. And this diminished their cognitive control, okay, which is, this is quite strong, this research. And if you apply it into our world, multitasking while learning English, texting while we're watching an English lesson or whatever, it reduces retention and comprehension. So we should really encourage our students to do single task learning and structured focus periods. And I will be talking about this as we go. Another interesting article in 2010 where they looked at they actually says that that if we all this superficial skimming of information, okay, everything is so superficial, and it says that our whole concentration can decrease, and it diminishes our capacity to think deeply and to learn. I mean, it's quite powerful stuff. And that's why in our classrooms it's important to encourage active listening, active reading, where our learners are engaged deeply in English texts instead of just passive scrolling, okay? And encouraging our students to read, obviously, in general. And there's a lot, I mean, this is just some findings, but also another research showed that fragmented online interactions led to lower retention of information because of this lack of deep processing. And I will be showing you some digital tools that can help students focus on a more meaningful context with structured digital engagement. So I'll be showing this during the webinar, okay? All right, now. A question, are you listening to me, or have you started to WhatsApp? Are you still listening to me? Do I still have your attention? Ah, excellent, good, because I know that's good, that's good. But maybe, if I were you and if you're interested in this topic, do read some of the research on it, okay? Because it would be nice for you to do this with your students, get them to look at some research, do a little activity where they have to maybe do a project on it, they have to look things up, and they can actually read about it and talk about it. It's good to get our students to think about these things. All right, so balancing attention. Now, there are lots of strategies for balancing attention. I'm going to give you some, and I'm going to give you some examples, okay? So the first one is this Pomodoro technique. Now, this is an old technique, right? Where what you do is your students do like a 25-minute focus sessions on us when they do a task with no distraction, and then they can have a 5-minute break where they can have like a tech break or something like that. COVID lockdown, yes, you're right, Viviana. COVID definitely did affect the multitasking. Yes, because all our students who were doing courses online, where they're doing all their work online, they'd be online, they'd be looking on their phones. Absolutely, I agree. But this is good. Now, I started to do this with my daughters, this Pomodoro technique. And what I did was, we've got Alexa. So I said, okay, put your phone away. Tell Alexa to interrupt you in like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and study without your phone, okay? And then Alexa will interrupt, and then you can look at your phone. And they've started to do this, and actually my eldest daughter is actually doing it without me telling her anymore, so absolutely. Okay, now, self-testing and recall. So engaging in active recall with repetition can really reinforce learning. And I'm going to show you some activities and apps to use with your students, okay? And then scheduling and having a habit that you know that at that time, on that day, you're going to have this specific time to focus on one language study or one area. And at that moment, you're not going to have any distractions. Okay. And you can even start to lengthen it. So maybe it could be 25 minutes and then 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And before you know it, your students may be, focused for an hour, which if you think about it, when they do an exam, when they do any type of exam, they have to stay focused, but, very often for 2 hours, 3 hours, So tell them how important it is, the whole idea of focusing their attention. And then, of course, visual aids. Now, I use the visual aids all the time with my students. I work with a lot of dyslexic students, and mind maps, interactive quizzes, all these things can really help to break down information into more manageable chunks and obviously it helps our memory. So anything that can help our memory helps attention. Okay, and also self-monitoring, okay? So as I said, talking to your students, getting them to getting their feedback, asking them, if they see any improvement, all these things are important. and some of the apps. Now I'm going to show you some apps that our students can also use that can actually stop them from being distracted. I'll be showing that today, and I've been using these a lot in class. Okay, now here we have some structured digital engagement learning apps. Now I'm sure that you've all used things like Kahoot and Quizlet, things like that. Now, the whole idea of Quizlet with the flashcards is that, you know, this whole repetition with flashcards, images, repetition, that can really enforce vocabulary and keep their attention. Okay, Quizlet has got all these customized decks, and you can actually create your own. And Kahoot is a game-based. Now, you've all used Kahoot, haven't you? I bet you've all used Kahoot, but actually it is very good for learning and attention, okay? Because the games can create good engagement, active recall, and all the I use them a lot in class, Kahoot and Quizlet. And again, reinforcing, repeating vocabulary, all these things. And the instant feedback is another really good way of reinforcing learning. And anything to do with games, motivations. I mean, I know your teenage students, how much do they love to compete and you know, and when they do all these games, they love it. You know, that's when they're completely motivated and engaged. And I will be talking about motivation as we go on. Okay. All right, now. So I want to talk about, sorry, first I'm going to talk a little bit also about how ChatGPT can help with digital engagement. Now, I'm going, I want to tell, how much do you love ChatGPT from 1 to 5, okay? 1, you don't really love ChatGPT. 5, you love ChatGPT. Let me just ask you this question. Elaine, we are, oh no, we've got a 2. A 5, a 4. Whoa, ChatGPT is definitely a winner, okay? You know, very often during the day, I actually say, while I'm working, oh, I love ChatGPT. I think my husband's getting jealous. Oh, we've got a 7, okay. Okay. So we can actually use ChatGPT to help with engagement, okay? Now, students love ChatGPT. Now, our question, do your students all use ChatGPT? Although they pretend they don't use it, but do your students, and have they started using ChatGPT? Yes, they do. You know, and obviously this makes a big impact on our job as teachers, the fact that they're all using ChatGPT. And I am trying to, well, I have been for the last year, to really let my students understand how it can be a tool, and not just a tool for cheating as what they thought at the beginning, but really how it can help them with their learning, okay? Especially because when they're using ChatGPT, because it does everything, they don't have to, you know, they don't have to look here, look there. They open up ChatGPT, they decide on there's a single task environment, and they decide on, you know, what they're going to do and how they're going to use it for. And obviously it gives them immediate feedback, which, you know, prevents them from looking at elsewhere and losing focus. And you can actually create all these games and ways to help retention of attention with ChatGPT, okay? I'll give you some example, okay? You can do you can review vocabulary, you can do some Quizlet style, like I said. Now, it does great images now as well. You can create your own flashcards in ChatGPT. So, for example, okay, maybe on day 1, your student can say, okay, introduce 5 new words. And then on day 3, you can ask ChatGPT to recall those words and put them in a sentence. And next day, you could create a quiz with the same words. You could set a daily review session, you know, to quiz you on the previously learned words. Use it as a speaking partner, you know. All these for grammar, quiz it, you know, ChatGPT is a good tool for them to use. Obviously, you know, you've got to really guide them through and show how it is a tool and not just a cheating tool. But I think a lot of teachers are now using it in a good way. And at the beginning, I did a webinar more than a year ago, and no one had used ChatGPT, okay? And things have definitely changed. Technology it has definitely advanced since artificial intelligence. Okay, now I'm going to just show you just 2 apps that can help our students to focus on attention, okay? So the first one is called Forest, okay? And it costs $4.99 for the year, okay? Now, this is like a Pomodoro style timer, right? And it's quite, and now because, you know, if I say to my students, you know, for 20 minutes, concentrate, okay? Or even if they use a timer on the phone, it's not the same as if they use these little apps, because they like to use these apps. And what it is, you've got a tree, okay? And you've got to grow this tree. So you put in like, so for 25 minutes, I'm not going to touch my phone. I'm not going to touch anything. And if you do, the tree starts to die. And if you don't, this tree grows and other trees grow. And it's just something that, that stimulates them to do it. It might sound silly, but it is actually effective, okay? And yeah, because it gives you these rewards by not distracting themselves. And students love rewards. And if you don't want to pay for anything, there is the Freedom app. It's called Freedom. And this blocks distracting apps and websites during the study session. So they decide, okay, I'm going to have a 10-minute study session. They decide what they want to block, and it helps them to stay immersed in their language learning with no interruptions, okay? Because obviously the best thing to do is to put the phone in their bag far away from them when they're studying. But because that doesn't work, these are just 2 little apps that you should try out with your students. Now, another question, because I have to keep you engaged. Right, question. Does boredom increase attention span? What do you think? Does being bored help to increase our attention? Any ideas? No, 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 could be. I wouldn't think so, no. Yes, no. Okay, so more no's than yeses. Right, so we've got, well, of course not. Well, you see, let's see. I'm just going to give you now, the reason why I started to think about this, okay, was because, you know, there was a moment when I was using tech all the time. But then when I went for a shower, I used to find myself, now I am also a musician and I write songs and everything. I used to find myself during the shower time, I used to actually think of songs and lyrics and just, I used to get all these ideas, and I used to stay under the shower for a long time, that my husband actually switched off the hot water, because obviously it's not very green and he started to switch off the hot water. But when I was in the shower, I used to start to think, my mind was left to wander, okay? But when I talk about boredom, I'm talking about when our mind is left to wander, and we're not always, you know, in our little free time that we have looking on our phone, okay? And I was thinking about my children. This is not my children, but I was thinking about my children. I used to travel when I was younger, I used to, you know, look out the window, and I used to look out the window and my mind would wander. Now, the other day I was driving my daughter's, you know, I'm a taxi driving mother, and, you know, they were on their phone. They were on their phone and looking out the window. Their minds, my daughters hardly ever, you know, have a moment when they're completely, well, they're not doing anything, okay? So I started to look a little bit about this idea of letting our minds rest, okay? And I found some research that does show that it can help our attention span, because allowing the mind to be bored sometimes it can reset focus, it can boost creativity, it can enhance deep thinking. And because of all our stimulation, boredom, as I said, kids especially are hardly ever bored. And it could be an important ingredient for improving attention and cognitive function. Yeah, exactly. People don't get bored. That's the point. That's the point. So I've got some studies, just so you know, so you realize I'm just not making all this up, okay? Downtime, yes, Elaine. Yes, but now you know, my kids call it bored, you know? Downtime, yeah. So lots of studies, I'm just going to show you some. A study in central Lancashire found that boredom encourages creative problem solving, like what I said about in the shower. When people are asked to do a boring task, which is like maybe copying phone numbers, okay, they later perform better on a creative thinking task, okay? And it suggests that boredom gives the brain time to form deeper connections, improving focus when then returning to tasks. Yeah, I suppose I know they're not the same thing, but I'm just talking about when our minds, when we're not, when we're at, when we allow our minds like just to not think of anything, and when we allow our minds to wander, that's what I'm talking about. Also, because what I said about this dopamine addiction at the beginning, I'll say, it says that when we're bored without distraction, we can actually reset this whole dopamine sensitivity and makes it easier to focus, okay? And neuroscientists suggest that temporary boredom allows the prefrontal cortex to regain control again, improving attention regulation. Now, this is interesting. I find this very, very interesting. And also, more research says that the brain needs these restorative times to remain focused. Okay, so there's a lot of research on this, and yeah, I'm not talking about bored students in class. This is what I'm going to explain better. Okay, so I've been experimenting with my students because when I read things, it's great, but then I have to experiment with my students always, okay? Or my children or my students, okay? My husband, no, because he doesn't let me do any of these things anymore. So we can try to do some intentional boredom activities, and that's what I've tried to do with them, okay? So you give them 5 minutes. I've been doing five. This is like I've been doing 5 minutes when my students had to just write down numbers from 1 to 10 and then just start for 5 minutes, okay? But I also asked them to come up with some boring activities that we do for 5 minutes, which they really enjoy, inventing boring activities. And we've started this. I've only been doing this for the last couple of weeks, okay? But this is what I've started to do with them, and I will be able to share everything maybe in the next webinar. But I've been trying to do this with them, and then but I don't have the results now. But they are doing it, and we've been doing it now for the last 2 weeks. And so I am trying this out, but as I said, research has tried this out, and also this idea of like digital detox, okay, where as I say, if you do things like walking and doodling or even staring at a blank wall, this can really help to focus again. Okay, so if you want to try it out, I've just tried, as I said, this has been a big this has made a big impact on me, studying the research and trying things out. And so hopefully maybe you can try things out as well, and maybe we can, at the next session, we can maybe share some of our ideas and things that we've found, okay? Digital detox, yes, absolutely. And that's what I've been doing. I've stopped. When I get up in the morning, I'm no longer looking at my phone. Okay, so I have breakfast. I am trying to detox myself because it does become an addiction. In my case, because I love technology, I have realized that maybe at my age at 50, it has become more of addiction than maybe people who are born, who are like the younger generations. This is something to think about as well. Okay. Yeah, now yeah, thank you, Rosemary. With ADHD, again, the whole idea of giving them like 10 minutes when they've got to like do something and then little breaks, is a great way to work with ADHD children. Okay, okay, I haven't done boredom breaks with ADHD children yet, but obviously with ADHD kids, it's very, very important, the breaks. But as I say, I see most of my students in the classroom with ADHD tendencies in the sense that they have to have breaks. If I want them to concentrate, I have to give them frequent breaks, and the breaks get more frequent. Okay. More frequent, but I make sure that when they're not on a break, they're not using their phones. Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. Things have changed since then. Yes, I know. You're right. Absolutely right. But there is lots of research. And of course, the whole idea of attention and all the distractions is something that, is ongoing. Okay. But this is a little quote for you. And it's not all those who wander are lost. Okay. So this idea of our mind wandering sometimes can be good for us. All right. So how can we navigate the digital divide? Okay, so I mean, what I think is the whole idea that I'm trying to give to you is that we've got to be self-aware. We've got to find strategies for ourselves and for our students where they are aware. They're aware that, you know, they've got to work on attention. They've got to experiment of ways where they can be more focused. They've got to adapt, and then hopefully they will be successful. And that is what I have been trying, and I have started to do in this journey. And so, you know, it is a good idea to start from the very beginning of self-awareness, and your students, get them to think about this. Now, this is a picture of my family. Here we've got my daughters and actually my mother-in-law, okay? Now, any idea what they're doing? Does anyone know? This is a game, okay? Any idea what game this is? Are you still with me? No, it's not. No, it's not soccer. It's not billiard. No. No. Battleships. No. John, I'll read that afterwards, that suggestion that you said. No, now this is a game where when my daughters play this game, okay, they can play it for 6 hours, okay, with small toilet breaks where they run to the toilet, okay? And they don't even think about food, okay? This is a game called Dungeons and Dragons, okay? I don't know if anyone's played this before. But Dungeons and Dragons is a role play game where they have to invent characters. They have to invent stories, and every time they play, the story moves on. And my kids are completely they love it. They absolutely love it. And it was interesting, you know, because when they play it, they are completely focused on the game. I don't see any attention issues, you know. These are the same kids I was talking about before. Okay, so we have to take this into consideration, the fact that when students are motivated, okay, obviously they are more attentive. Now, I have done a lot of webinars for Language Cert where I've shown all these ways which I do motivate students with technology, with music, inventing songs, all these things, okay, which you can see on YouTube, okay? But the whole idea is encouraging this desire to learn by motivation, which in turn, obviously, motivated learners sustain attention longer. Now, there's so much research on motivation. As I said, I'm not going to be talking about it now, and you can find it when, yes, but just some key points to think about, okay, when it comes to motivation. I really do believe that it's really important that students feel this sense of satisfaction and achievement when they are in our classroom, okay? And this whole idea from, like, you know, Vygotsky many years ago, this idea of learning outcomes should fit with what they're able to do. So give them things which challenge them, but not too much, with things that they can achieve. And also, I mean, working with their peers can help this. So everything to do with collaborative learning, all these things motivate. And of course, when they're motivated, they're more attentive. Debating, all these collaborative ways to really work with students can help. Now, as I say, I'm not going to go into all these today, but this is an important point. And also the whole relevance of real life experiences, rich learning environments, immersing students in things that are relevant to them can really help them to understand and be motivated. That's another point. And this whole goal setting, now when my students, it's not about winning when I give them like a competition. It's about this, when I give my students something to do and they understand, and they, even if they say it in a way that's not perfect, it doesn't matter to me when we're learning English. But if they feel that they've said something in English and I've understood it, and they feel, yes, that's great, that sense of joy can really help students to be focused. And for me, one of the most important things, which you'll see if you watch many of my other webs, is passion. Okay, so a teacher's passion can really impact the energy. I talk about excitement, okay, because if students are excited, they will learn, they will be focused. And also, and sometimes a teacher's passion can become a student's passion. And so I really do, these are my big points. And I'm going to share a passion with you. It's not my passion, okay? But it's related to attention. Now, this is one of our teachers who started to do yoga in English to help the kids with their mindfulness, with their attention. And now we've actually started doing these yoga programs in lots of different schools, especially with primary schools students, and we're finding it very successful. The students are concentrating more and they love it. Okay, so the whole idea of yoga and obviously mindfulness activities is another way. Okay, motivation and mindfulness, they're all related, of course, can really help with retaining attention. And research has shown that the whole mindfulness area really does strengthen the prefrontal cortex. And I know that Language Share has done a lot of sessions on mindfulness, okay? But let's not put it aside. I think it should be very much present in our classrooms, okay? And it does reduce this whole cognitive overload, okay? Because you've got a single task focus, you're focusing your mind, okay? Thank you that you like the yoga and meditation, yes. So even like mindful breathing exercises you can do in your classroom, which are easy to do, okay? Another thing that I've started to do with my students is we've started to use the pen and paper again. So for so long my students were little digital students, which is great. But now I've started to use, I give them out a journal. And we started to write with our pen, and we started to keep a journal, okay, my students, which is a really nice way to get them to focus, get them to use their pen so they're not distracted by the computer or phones, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. And also active listening, as again, mindfulness fosters the whole active listening, okay? And promoting reflective thinking. So, when you're being mindful, you are being yourself aware, and all these things can really, really help. So I give them out a journal, and they write in it, okay? They've got their own journal, which they write in it. Yes, dyslexics can write, dyslexics are okay with writing. I mean, they've got to write. The thing is that my daughters are both dyslexic, and they don't use the computer to write. Because in class they have to use they don't want to be the only person using the computer, so they have learned. Obviously, sometimes they use the computer, but it's obviously dyslexic make errors when they write, but it's not about errors, journal writing. It's more about the whole mindfulness experience of keeping a journal. Okay. So, for example, when they keep a journal, I get them to write in English, okay, which obviously helps their English, okay, and it boosts the reflective thinking because they write about their learning experiences. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples. And as I say, they don't have a distraction because they're using their pen, okay? And also, when they write about their daily experiences and feelings, all these things can really help their emotional expression and confidence. Okay, and obviously, writing, a lot of students do the exams now, and they're still doing the written exam. Some are doing the digital, but a lot of them are doing the writing exam also. Okay, so I want now talking about exams. Okay, this whole journaling idea can actually help them with exams like the Language Share exams. Okay, so for example, one thing they have to do in exam is to do an informal email. Okay, and one of the tasks that I could give them for their journal is to write a daily email to a friend about the day, about your experience, things that you've done today, or things that you did yesterday, and they can write about their daily experiences in an informal email. Okay, this is one way to talk about their personal expression, and they practice informal tones, just like an exam. Or they can do a formal letter where they have got to write a reflection letter to a company or a school about a topic that interests them. Okay, so again, they're thinking, they're reflecting, okay? Or even writing about a descriptive writing, just daily experience or place where they talk about, where they they can describe things, which can really help them as well. Even in sensory details, they can describe what they see, what they feel, all these sort of things. And of course, narrative writing is fantastic, because when they do narrative, they can talk about their own personal experiences, or they can put themselves they can put it in the shoes of someone else, and it gets them to think. And storytelling skills really does require high level thinking, and it's good for like the higher level exam. So what I'm talking about is related to what our students have got to do in the classroom and when they do exams. And even an opinion essay, I love to do debating with my students. We do a lot of debating on all different topics. And then at the end, they can actually write up on, they can reflect on the debate, they can write about the debate. So all these things are important. The same thing with listening, okay? Because obviously, when our students are in class, most of the activities that you will be doing with your students, they are going to be using a sustained, focused attention, okay? And the exam tasks are very much related to this, okay? So for example, I don't know if any of you use the language exams, but there's a lot of short dialogues, okay, where they've got to listen, okay, to people talking. And this can really, and to do this, they've got to like focus, them not to be distracted, okay, and this can really help. And even listening for gist, when they listen for gist, they must grasp the main idea, okay, of a longer passage, so they're thinking for long periods of time. But it's the same with reading, when they've got to read for gist, okay. And also, when they listen to longer conversations, here they've got to identify, in this particular exam, they do have to identify emotions, they have to identify opinions and intentions, okay? So all these things require deep listening. And very often, I'll give you another tip, when you do these activities with them, so say you're using activities from the book, and from any book where this is type of it, give them a time, put a timer on, okay, so that they know how much time they've got to do it, and so it gets them really focused, okay. It's important that students know how much time they have to do these activities, so they don't waste time. And again, note taking is another really good self-study strategy. In the language set exams, they have to listen to audio and they have to actually take some notes as part of the exam. And again, that helps with engagement and it helps them to stay focused, okay? So are you still focused, everybody? Now, this is a big, big topic, okay? And what I thought I would do now is just, thank you, you're still focused. I want to just give you some final thoughts, and then maybe we can talk more about it. Okay, we can maybe do some more things on the chat. So, the idea of fragmented attention is something that's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. Okay, so we have to work with it. We have to work with and not against it, and find strategies for ourselves, but also for our student. Okay. Absolutely, yes. Well, testing, these are all things, the more, as I say, the more that our students, the more that technology is impacting on our students in this way, then yes, testing may have to change. Absolutely, yes, because students are going to find it harder and harder to concentrate for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Absolutely. Yes, taking notes, they've got to learn. That's another really good reflective practice on teaching them how to take notes, because not all students know how to take notes. They tend to write everything and then they get lost. Balancing the technology. Okay, now, before I started to prepare for this webinar, I used a lot of technology in my classroom, I must say, okay? And since over the last few months, I have started to balance it. So as I said, it's had a big effect on me. So this is why I really suggest, if you were like me, try and do some of it, because we've got to sometimes, like in counseling, we've got to like start with ourselves before we can like help others, and also I've given you some strategies, but maybe you have some strategies as well. For me, I'd like maybe to share, you could actually give, if there's any tips or strategies that you've used in the classroom, that would be really nice. Yes, it's a good point, Rosemary, about testing. It really is a good point. Obviously, students with dyslexia, they get more time. They get more time to do tests and things. But I'm starting to notice in the recent years, I'm starting to actually notice less difference between dyslexic students and students that are dyslexic, because dyslexic students now are able to, they've got good study methods. They learn how to use mind maps. They learn how to underline key phrases. They learn how to take notes. They've got really good study methods, and they're learning how to be focused. Whereas students that are not dyslexic and don't have these study practices I mean, I really have found that the gap is really beginning to close between dyslexics and non-dyslexics. Okay, yeah, we've all got a degree of dyslexia. I've definitely, the maths has definitely been in my life. I started to use mind maps at university, absolutely, because obviously it's a lot to do with memory, working memory also, and some people maybe have got better working memory than others. So there's Sylvia who's popped in to say hello, haven't you, Sylvia? Have you popped in to say hello there?
I have popped in to say that you've given us your personal journey. I think sharing your personal, and we've worked together for a couple of years now, and I know how you're always like there in the cutting edge of technology. Just really involved with lots of tools and tech
Oh,
tools.
all the
So,
time.
so
My
how you
students,
shared.
but always, I was distracted. I realized that I have been a bit distracting my students, although they've been engaged, and it's great that they're engaged and they love what they do. But, I have been doing less like traditional readings and traditional listenings and traditional writings with them. And I do think we have to start finding ways to balance this, Sylvia, like I said, okay? This is, coming from me, it's a big thing.
So you talked about very important concepts throughout the webinar, and I want to invite if there are any, if there are some questions that our participants have.
Electric shock. Rob, electric shock might be the next trend. Haha. Sorry.
There's some good conversation there in the chat, but you've
Yeah,
talked a lot about multitasking and single tasking. You've talked about these structured versus unstructured digital
yeah,
environments, which I found a very enabling concept. You've
yeah.
also talked about these apps that can help us focus. So how
Yes.
we can use technology to help us bring back and navigate
Yes,
focus.
yes, because when I give my students a task and they don't have any technology now, because they've got this app, they enjoy using the app to, as a timer, and they'll do it. They're more motivated to do it. I had to find all these ways, Sylvia, to try and get my students back. Yeah, so yeah, yeah.
But you've also talked a lot about this notion of the let your mind wander.
Yes,
And
yes,
I found that incredibly, and a lot of the participants also connected with how this can be the kind of springboard for creativity. A number of
yes,
people commented on that. And I
yeah,
think there is a lot maybe in this notion of doing less and letting your mind rest as well from this
yeah.
dopamine
Yes,
effect.
we have to. We really have to. Those of you who've got dogs, somebody was right about dogs. Going to walk the dog. I think without your phone, is another way just to be able to walk and let our minds rest, just slowing down. One thing about COVID is that although we did a lot of multitasking, but in generally we did start to slow down our lives. Okay, and now as if we've gone back even faster than before.
Mm.
So I think
Yeah, and obviously AI is accelerating things, and
yes,
you have this notion of acceleration. A lot of things are expected to happen faster, but you've
yes,
talked also about this notion of mental endurance, which
yes, yes,
I really picked up,
yes,
and these
yes,
low stimulation
yes,
activities, so
yes.
that
Well,
we
I've
don't
started.
have.
Yeah, as I said, I've started to do this with my students, and we'll see the results. We know we're going to be looking at talking about it and seeing the result. It takes a while. It doesn't just happen in a day. So we've been doing
Mm.
this for a while, for a couple of weeks now. And we'll see the results. But yeah, I do like to try things with my students. Because sometimes you read things, but until you try them out, you don't really know. And everyone's different, of course. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
you've also talked about this
slow down.
cognitive overload as well,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we are sometimes experiencing in environments.
So thank you, Maria Rosa. Thank you. That's a nice
Yeah.
compliment. It wasn't easy today because usually I do all my little tech things and videos and I do all these things for you to keep you at, this has probably been one of the hardest ones for me to do. But in life you've got to learn from things and you've got to put yourself to the test. And so yeah, so it's nice to have some feedback from nice feedback. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Oh, you weren't bored. Well, that's good, Rob. That's good. So
We
you
have a very
minded
engaged
wandered. You'd
teaching
minded
community
wander.
here.
Well, you can wander now. You can have a 5-minute boredom where you can let your mind wander. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, well
So
done.
we had
Undivided.
questions about the certificates. As always, these will be available to you over the next week in your email, and the webinar will be available also for you to rewatch and look at the references on our YouTube channel. And it's always great to be working with Joanna and working with you as you really took, I suggested the topic, you really took it on board, you experimented
Well,
with
I
your
actually was quite
students.
scared at the beginning. I was scared when you said the topic. It's like when you maybe smoke and you realize that it's not good for you, but you don't really want to stop or even like research it. Okay. And when you gave me the topic, I was thinking, but then you just, it's been really good for me. Very mindful, very mindful.
Yeah, we got you into the mindfulness track, and I was like, I'm hearing about mindfulness now from Joanna.
Yes, I'll be a didacta, Sylvia. I will be a didacta, absolutely. And yeah, a bit of music though at didacta. Yeah, we'll have to do a bit of music. Yes, someone said a bit of music. We need music. Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Oh, 10 minutes. Well, that's good. You see, very good. Well, thank you for your love. It's always lovely to. I know, it's not easy, to do these, even to like join webinars, because I know how busy you all are if you're teachers. So I appreciate you all coming, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.